With a rich, mysteriously dark past overspilling with sinister, deathly activities and pursuits, the enchanting Epping Forest has witnessed some of the most atrocious deeds mankind is capable of inflicting on its fellow counterpart. Numerous spirits are thought to inhabit the forest, including the unrepentant soul of infamous highwayman Dick Turpin. Countless lost, panicked spectres of murder victims who met often gruesome, demeaning ends under the watch of this magnificent woodland. Some of these manifestations have appeared so painfully horrific, they have rendered their unsuspecting audience welded in shock to the spot where they stood, incapable of moving a muscle. A notoriously haunted area of Epping is the dreaded Hangman Hill. Although it is unknown who this vengeful spirit was in life, many locals believe it to be the malevolent, relentless ghost of a hangman who had revelled in dragging condemned criminals to the noose centuries before. Visitors to the forest have reported parking their cars at the base of the hill and, after selecting neutral, have experienced the car beginning to move, rolling them uphill. Some have claimed that when their vehicle reached the top of the hill, the car simply stopped. A truly horrible phenomenon indeed, but a great number of people have complained of near-identical accounts. One couple and their 4-year-old daughter have been visiting the forest on a bank holiday weekend break when the unpleasant incidents happened to them. I had shifted into neutral, put my handbrake on, engine off, and was about to open my car door when the car started moving, unassisted, uphill. On first instance, I was panicked. I thought there must be a serious fault with the car, but it picked up momentum and we rolled upwards. The three of us were increasingly anxious. What was going on? I, as the driver, felt complete responsibility for the safety of my family and attempted several times to brake, but worryingly to no avail. As we reached the top of the hill, we just stopped. My wife was adamant that she saw a man stood as though waiting for us before he slowly walked over to us. She said to me, "Who's that coming over?" in the nervous, mistrusting tone I've heard her use before. I swear I didn't see anyone there, but I sure as hell wasn't planning to hang about. I restarted the engine and mercifully it was okay. We drove off out of that place. Later on, after our daughter had gone to bed, I asked Jenny, my wife, what she'd seen on the hill, and she described a man in old-fashioned clothing, grey trousers and cloth tunic stood leering at the car and us in it. He had started walking over before we pulled away. She was certain she'd seen him, and judging by the ashen colour of her skin, I had no trouble believing her. It would appear that if this cantankerous soul really is that of the hangman, he certainly enjoys injecting fear and apprehension into the living. With so many sightings of wandering spectres, it's no great surprise that the area is a hotspot for many groups with active interest in the paranormal, arriving in the hope of catching sight of one or more of Epping Forest's ghoulish residents. But for plenty of eyewitnesses who have encountered a brush with these otherworldly entities, the reality has been a far cry from a desirable, welcome experience. One such spectator, a keen walker from Kent, had been absorbing the wonders of the forest one Thursday when she was met with a bone-chilling sight. I had been walking through the woods when I caught sight of a young girl in a cornflower blue dress, stood about a stone's throw away from me. She was walking over to me, timidly and half afraid. I stopped dead in my tracks on seeing her. I instantly knew that this girl was not living, that I was looking at the shocking image of a ghostly child. I was petrified. I could feel my heart thumping in my chest, and I'm sure I could hear it, and suspected that she could also. I really thought I must be about to have a heart attack. She continued coming towards me and stopped. Although clearly not a physical being, I could still hear twigs beneath her feet in the same way you would with a living person. She didn't speak. She didn't try, and I definitely couldn't muster a word. She had light brown, long hair down to her hips, a tired-looking, sad, sunken face, and large blue, moist and puffy eyes, as though she had been recently crying. She just remained motionless, staring at me. I have never seen anything supernatural before this and haven't, thank God, since. But I remember as if it were yesterday. My hands were cupped either side of me, filling with sweat. It seemed a lifetime. We just stood staring at each other. I was convinced she could see me. I wanted to turn and run, but it felt like being in concrete. I couldn't. Then she continued walking over to me, my heart still pounding. She just walked right through me as though I wasn't there, leaving me in a state of fright and confusion. My mind was blank. Could she see me at all? I know I saw her, and it was unbearable. I never want to see anything like that again in my life. When I looked back, she'd gone. This is by no means an isolated event. There have been many similar accounts of the Blue Girl. Sources have claimed to have seen an identical-looking child wringing wet as though she had been submerged in water, holding the hand of an angry, frustrated woman. Just who these terrifying beings are or were remains a mystery. But with so many mortals coming forward with statements, there must be something lurking within this remarkable landscape. The forest appears to be bursting with the lost souls of those who have perished so long ago. One repeated theme is the sightings and muffled audio of marching soldiers. The daunting sound of drums emanates through a still forest and has horrified many who are in no doubt that they heard it. One unsettling case came courtesy of an elderly couple who had been photographing the forest back in the late 1990s. The gentleman explained, "My wife and I had been taking snaps of the area when, out of nowhere, with no apparent source, came the fearful, worried voices of 3 or 4 men together. The voices were very close by, as though standing there next to us, but there was nobody to be seen. We heard the somber-sounding men talking, and one directly said the words, 'But it's if we don't come back.' And then it stopped. My wife and I looked at each other in disbelief. I am a former serviceman and recognized that unmistakable sound of a comrade when fear hits. You never forget it. We stood still, hand in hand. My wife was very nervous. I, for some reason, was not. I intuitively knew exactly what it was. Seconds later, we heard a man sobbing and a tin or blunt object of some description was thrown to the ground. It was then that my wife and I walked away. It felt as though we were intruding in something, that we should go away and leave well alone. With such fascinating accounts provided by those who have stumbled upon the chilling side of such an iconic place, it's certainly fair to conclude that the distressing manifestations show no signs of moving on, which begs the question, is it they who are disturbing us, or in fact us who barge unsuspectingly into their worlds? Don't forget to like, subscribe and share, but all the while, don't have nightmares.